Welcome to Astronomy Day. This is a presentation on the consequences of light pollution. First, an overview of light pollution. Here's a picture taken from satellites of the United States illuminated at night. All of the light that you see in this picture is light pollution. Ever since the development of electrical light, light pollution has increased. In these images you see from the late 1950s, not a lot of light pollution, but some, and how it increased 20 years later into the mid-70s, what it looked like in 1997, and what it will look like in 2025, only 5 years from now. Light pollution hotspots in southern New England are represented in Boston, Hartford, Springfield, Providence, Rhode Island. All those red areas and white areas represent where light pollution is the most severe. Light pollution is a worldwide problem. Here is a satellite image of Europe from Spain to Italy to Germany, and you can see all of the light pollution as a satellite sees it. So how does light pollution affect astronomy? Most obvious is the ability to see the stars and what happens when light pollution steps in. The Bortle scale provides us with 9 different settings, from an inner city sky rated 9 where you see maybe 5 stars at all, to an excellent dark sky site rated scale number 1 where there's very little or no light pollution. You can see the difference as light pollution increases from 1 on the right all the way to 9 on the left. The ability to see the stars is affected significantly. Light pollution is not limited in its effects simply to our ability to see the stars. Also, light pollution causes adverse health effects for people, for animals, and for nature in general. Trees, leaves. A significant amount of adverse consequences results from light pollution. Oftentimes only a small portion of the light from a fixture is directed at the target where it is intended to illuminate. A lot of the light is too high and creates a glare zone that goes into what they call spill light, and oftentimes includes upward light that's reflected off the ground. One solution to reducing light pollution is to use less lighting whenever possible. For example, with street lights there are alternatives where you can have flush-mounted LEDs for lane delineation. The same thing can be done using retroreflective lane striping and retroreflective signage. These are highly effective on sections of road where cyclists and pedestrians activity are not present. Other ways to limit light pollution include advocating for streetlight removal and alternatives, to use light sources with limited shortwave emissions known as blue light content. Use motion sensors and light only when necessary. Use the lowest amount of sufficient light for the intended purpose, and use timers to avoid lighting all night long when not necessary. Short wavelength light has a greater propensity to create light pollution because the light waves will bounce off of air particulates in the sky more frequently when they have a short wavelength. So one way of controlling light pollution is to use wavelengths that are not in the blue range where we have short ones, but longer wavelength lights on the red or orange side. This will help reduce light pollution. So one question in astronomy: if you can't see the stars at night, are you the only one who loses? No. Who else? With zero light pollution, everyone gets to see the full majesty of the stars. But light pollution is like a thief. It takes away our ability to see the stars. Light pollution steals the majesty of the night sky from our children and our grandchildren. Light pollution steals not just from your children and their children, but from all future generations. Here, Calvin and Hobbes has a very pertinent cartoon where Calvin says, if people sat outside and looked at the stars each night, I bet they'd live a lot differently. And Hobbes responds, how so? Calvin says, well, when you look into infinity, you realize that there are more important things than what people do all day. And that's very true. So to recap, how can you help? Install proper lighting in your own yard. Proper lighting is lighting that's shielded, directed only to where it's needed, on only when it's needed, and off when it's not needed. Become an advocate in your town and promote the adoption of outdoor lighting regulations. Urge your city to adopt streetlight master plans. Retain warranted streetlights, but eliminate the rest. Lower streetlight levels where safe to do so. Limit the amount of light to the minimum amount needed, and urge the adoption of the model lighting ordinance. Finally, consider joining the International Dark Sky Association. Thank you. For further information, please contact Leo Smith, International Dark Sky Association, email address leo@smith.net. Thank you.